while we're there, I want to circle back and have got one more question about ghosts, but I wanted to talk about the non-spooky adventure treasure hunt. I don't know how much you can talk about, but I read your description, and there's an escape. There's
Yeah.
sneaking in
So
abandoned fun house, and I'm listening. It's like that sounds like a spooky premise a little bit.
I know. And I had to be very careful not to make it that because my mind does naturally turn certain things into a spooky thing, even if it's not really. There are no scary elements in that book. And I can only tell you the tentative title. Tentatively, it's called The Delta Game. I don't know if that's going to change, but it's very much kind of yeah, it's about these three kids who are mathematicians, really. They're very smart and they're very good at escape rooms. Very good at escape rooms. So I happen to love escape rooms. I think, either you like them or they make you very nervous, right? It's kind of, it's one of those things that if you've done a few and you think that they're really fun, then great. And you do see some common themes in them sometimes. Some of them are harder than others, but these kids are really good at them. And one of them, in kind of a Goonies-esque type moment, is losing their home. Their home is being foreclosed on. And these kids who call themselves the Deltas, they're three sides of a triangle. They're, without one, they feel like they just don't work. They start brainstorming ways to save this house. And one is this fun house that has been abandoned since the 50s. And the rumor is there was a treasure hidden in it by the triplets who created the funhouse that was never found. And so these kids think if anyone can get in and out of this funhouse, it's us. Because this is not an average funhouse. It's not just warped mirrors and mirror mazes. It's riddles. It's more like a giant escape room. And so the premise is them sneaking in, trying to get in, find this fabled treasure and get out before they're caught. And it was really fun to write. It's to my knowledge so far, it's going to be coming out in spring of 2024. I don't know an exact month yet, and I don't know an exact title yet, but I'm really excited.
Probably get changed.
All of my titles have been changed. Little fun fact about me, my titles are apparently lame. I cannot title a book. Every single book that I showed you and talked about has been retitled. Honestly, though, they're all better. Like when my publisher chimes in and says, hey, let's talk about title. The first time I went through that, I was a little bit salty. I was like, oh, I like my title, I'm going to keep my title. And then when you see what they're coming up with, this is why publishing is such a collaborative effort and why it's so important to have a team of talented people who believe in you working with you, because I couldn't do it without them. Like these titles are so much better than anything I came up with.
It's good that you feel that way since they keep changing it.
I know.
Lindsay Eager, she said that you should start thinking of your book release date as like your due date for a pregnancy. It'll be approximately somewhere in this time.
Yeah. Yep. That's pretty much the case. Yeah. If I were guessing on Delta Game, I would say March of 2024, but we'll see. So It Found Us September and then Delta in March.
Something I find, and I wonder if you find this to be true of yourself, but when I'm trying my absolute best to get away from being scary, it's still there. Like I just told you about my Indiana Jones worm book, but if you're a worm being chased by a robin, he's got a friend who's a fly who's almost bitten by a spider. These are horror things. These are scary monsters. The scariest monster I've written about are the giant robot bees and Banneker bones. Those are the ones that give me nightmares, not the zombies, not the actual horror stuff where I'm trying to be as scary as I can. So when you're getting away from that, do you find that something similar where you're just haunted by your own imagination that's just bent a little bit toward the dark side?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there is a scene in Delta Game with a mechanical clown.
Sure.
This was a really hard scene for me to write because the clown is not intended to be scary, but anything abandoned feels a bit scary to me. First of all, I mean, if you, I'll give you an example. Over the fall, when I was on my book tour, I had the opportunity, my publisher sent me to Colorado, where I had 3 days in Colorado and I visited 7 schools. And I was working with the Bookworm of Edwards was the name of the bookstore, and they were amazing. And in fact, one of the people who worked there ended up taking me around one afternoon we had free to kind of sightsee, right? And she says to me, well, there's something I really want to show you. It's an abandoned town here, like a ghost town. And you can't actually get to this town. You can see it from a higher area of a mountain, right? You can pull over your car and you can see it. But the story behind this is that it's been abandoned since the 80s. When the FAA basically came in and knocked on everyone's doors. This was a mining town. So there's all this cluster of small houses, and there's a school and like a movie theater. And then there's no joke, a ladder. There's still the remnants of it, like a ladder built into the mountain that goes down 1,000 feet. And that's what the workers would take down to the mines, the actual mines. But all of these homes are sitting there because in the 80s, when the FAA came in, they knocked on everyone's doors and essentially said, you have to be gone in 24 hours. You got to get out. Now, there's differing stories I heard about why that happened. Toxic chemicals, something in the soil, something in the water, something in the soil and the water, something in the air. But standing on top of that mountain and hearing nothing but wind and looking down at this town that looks as though people were there yesterday. There's cars sitting there, and although I don't really support, the kind of urban exploring that my kids do in the Delta game and that people do with that town, if they can get in, I have seen videos that show that like medical records are just sitting there. There's dishes in the sinks. It literally looks as though people just vanished. That is eerie. It's just eerie. Anytime you're somewhere like that, or you're watching a video of something like that, it's creepy. So writing the Delta game was hard from that perspective, because I kind of find fun houses frightening and I find abandoned fun houses more frightening. So I had to be very careful not to let my imagination go down that path with that book.
How did you safeguard against that?
It was a constant effort. It really was. And I have very talented critique partners who read over my books in chunks. And the whole theory there is I don't really prefer to write an entire book and send it to someone, because if I've made a pretty significant error early on in the book, if they are reading it as I'm writing, 2-3 chapters at a time, they're going to catch it before I have woven that into the entire story. And make me think about it much earlier than I would have. And so my main critique partner, Jenny Walsh, who is a phenomenal author, shout out to Jenny. So she writes historical fiction, middle grade for Scholastic, and she also writes adult historical fiction for Harper Muse. She read that book as I was writing it and would make note anytime she felt any creepy Lindsay crawling in, right? Anything that seemed like I might be lending a little too much spook factor to that scene. And a lot of the times I didn't even know I was doing it. So I think it's important to have people who have the same interest in your work that you do. They believe in you. They want it to be the best it can be. And because of that, they're honest.
Shout out to Jenny. Thanks for keeping it honest.
Yeah, thank you for putting up with all of my incredibly rough drafts.
I do love this idea of a dark Lindsay, a creepy Lindsay that comes in that has to be watched out for.
Right. It's like that, it's like that Treehouse of Horror, the Simpsons episode with the alternate Bart, right? I don't know if you ever saw that one, but the like bad Bart that like lives in the attic or whatever. That's like the other Lindsay. She's like very ghoulish and she really enjoys the creepy. She tries to make everything creepy. She's why there's a skeleton that still has a Santa hat sitting in the corner of her basement right now. Yeah.
Oh, well, Santa hat for Christmas. That makes sense.
Yes. I decided we were going to leave him out and just dress him up a little for the holidays.